Hello and welcome back to Books and Things. Today I'm going to be doing the best of the worst tag. If you haven't heard of this tag, that is because it did not exist until this moment. I do a lot of tags. I really enjoy doing tags. They're one of my favourite things to do on Booktube. That and like discussion-y videos. So I figured it was about time I made it my own. So I thought I would make up a tag about literary villains and dislikable characters because it gives me an excuse to talk about some of my favourite books and my favourite literary character of all time. So, the first question which I have made up is your favourite literary villain. I have two favourite literary villains. One is my proper favourite literary villain and my favourite literary character of all time, perhaps, arguably. I think so, and that is Bradley Headstone from Our Mutual Friend. Unless this is the first video of mine that you've watched, you don't need to be told how much I adore this book and how much I adore its author. And my favourite character in Our Mutual Friend, and therefore probably I think my favourite character ever, is Bradley Headstone. Not that I'd like to meet him, but he is a brilliant character. He is a villain, but he's also a kind of tragic hero of his own right as well. Basically, Bradley Headstone is a school teacher and he falls in love with the elder sister of one of his pupils. He falls in love in a very violent, dramatic, terrible, terrifying way, and when he discovers that she is in fact in love with somebody else, then he kind of breaks down quite a lot. Dickens's villains are often quite caricatured, quite not silly, but you know, they're evil because either they're evil or they want money. And Bradley Headstone is not. He is so much more complicated, he is so much more human. You think what he's doing is so wrong, but you completely understand him, and that is brilliant. Those are the best kind of villains, and I think it is done so well in Our Mutual Friend, and I applaud Dickens so much, so much. One of my other favourite literary villains is the whole Winshaw family from What a Carve Up. What a Carve Up is one of my favourite books, and it is one of the angriest books that I love, if that makes sense. It is a very angry book. It's published in 1994, and it contains a lot of anti-Thatcher anger and a lot of anger about like class issues and about the greed of the 1980s effectively, and about the people who were finishing on top of society while a lot of other people in society were not finishing on top. And the Winshaw family are horrible, despicable, awful people, and they're not human. Like, they are caricatures, and they are caricatured evil. They are greedy and selfish to the point that you don't believe in them, but you also sort of do in a way that's really scary. And they're just brilliant, brilliant villains, and I love this novel. And the second question is the most convincing literary villain, because I think that's slightly different to your favourite. However, the most convincing for me, Bradley Headstone. I think he is such a convincing villain. And also, I wanted to briefly mention the Prophet from Station 11. I really like Station 11, and I think the character of the Prophet, who is as close as the book comes to having a villain, is well done because you kind of get to find out where he came from and you see how the world has made him what he is, even though he's scary and horrible, etc. And I just think that's done very well. Question 3. The least convincing literary villain. There are many I can think of, people that are just purely evil and don't seem to have much motivation for it. One, I'm going to say there is someone in the Infernal Devices trilogy, I'm not going to say who, this is kind of a spoiler, whose conversion or move from what you thought was the right side to the bad side, I just didn't really believe, as much as I enjoyed that series. Another one of my lesser favourite villains who I do not think has done that well is Voldemort. I'm sorry, I love Harry Potter so much, and I love the way that how Voldemort has acted has impacted the world, and I think the Death Eaters and so on are really well done, and the fear people have of Voldemort, just not even saying his name, is very clever. But Voldemort as a character, I just don't think he's a very interesting villain. I like my literary villains to have a good backstory and a proper good, like, motivation. Question 4. A character who is supposed to be a villain but you kind of think is a hero. For me, one of my favourite bad characters who I really like and really kind of root for is Henry Crawford in Mansfield Park. I love Mansfield Park, and I think I've spoken about Henry Crawford in this before. He is the kind of token scoundrel of Mansfield Park, as it were. He is the Wickham or the Willoughby of Mansfield Park, but I like him. Because the thing is, Wickham is just kind of heartless, and Willoughby has a heart but is stupid and manipulative and, you know, seduces 15-year-old girls. But Henry Crawford is more complicated than that, and he's also the first person in the whole of Mansfield Park to really see Fanny Price's worth and her for what she is. You know, I love Mansfield Park, it's my second favourite Jane Austen, but Edmund Bertram is not wonderful. I find him boring and irritating, and he lectures Fanny when I don't think she needs it, because I think she's a great character on her own. And I kind of root for Henry Crawford and her when I read Mansfield Park, because I like him. I think he's great. He is a hero to me. Question number 5. A character who is supposed to be a hero but you kind of view as a villain. I have quite a few for these. All of these are in fact from books that I disliked. The first is Joe from Ian McEwan's Enduring Love. The next is the central protagonist of James Salter All That Is, which is a book I read a few months ago and has become, I think, my least favourite book ever. And the third one is the narrator from a book called All Names Have Been Changed. In these 3 books there was a central character, in fact all of them a central male character, who I didn't like. And I was really hoping I was supposed not to like, until I realised that I was supposed to like them, and then that just didn't go well. I don't think I viewed any of them as villains, but all of these 3 characters were kind of very selfish and a bit misogynistic, and that upset me and meant that I couldn't like them and couldn't like the book when the book kind of supported them. I really wanted the story of these 3 characters to kind of knock them and make them think about their lives, and instead they just kind of won. And that saddens me. Question 6. A book where the line between hero and villain or good and evil is blurred. I love books like this. I have 2 series I want to mention. One of my favourite is Trudy Canavan's Age of 5. This is the first book. This is a high fantasy series and it follows various characters, but at its heart is kind of a ongoing conflict and war between 2 neighbouring powers in the kind of continent they inhabit. And in the first book you see everything from the perspective of one particular side, and then in the second book you also get to see things from the perspective of characters from the opposing side of the war, and it's just done very well because you start to kind of doubt everything that you thought you were supposed to think in the first book. It's just very well done and I think they're a great series. Another series which does a similar thing is the Bartimaeus Trilogy. This is a young adult, I guess, middle grade, I don't really know. It's a great series anyway, regardless of what it is. It's set in a kind of alternative version of London where the British Empire is run by magicians who use the power of demons to keep themselves going. And the first book is told half from the perspective of one of the demons, Bartimaeus, who is a wonderful, wonderful and very, very funny narrator, and partly from the perspective of a young magician called Nathaniel. And in the first book there are several threats to the power that the magicians hold in society, and one is from other kind of rogue magicians, and one is from a group of commoners who are not magicians and are trying to attack the state and break them down. And in the first book, because you follow Nathaniel and Bartimaeus, you kind of have a particular side on this, and then in the second book you get to see things from the perspective of Kitty, who is part of the commoner resistance. And because you see things from her side of the story as well as Nathaniel's, you get a very complicated image of everything. Because you like Nathaniel, you want him to win, but you also want Kitty to win, even though they are on opposing sides. And you also want Bartimaeus to win, who is kind of on nobody's side, and it's just done very well and I really enjoy it. And finally, my 7th question. A book you love even though you don't actually like the characters. The first one I'm going to talk about, which is Wuthering Heights, and I know people have many mixed feelings on Wuthering Heights and I love it. It's my 3rd or 4th favourite book of all time, I would say, and I do understand why people don't like it. It's quite a weird book and I get that the characters aren't very likeable, but for me that's the power of the book, in that the characters are not very nice, but you kind of understand them. I mean, there's some likeable characters in this book. I have a soft place in my heart for Hareton, and I quite like younger Cathy sometimes, but yes, Heathcliff and older Cathy are not very nice, and many other characters, Hindley, etc. There are so many horrible, horrible characters in this book, but I love it because I think the fact that Emily Bronte writes in this way that makes you feel for and care about the story of these horrible people is just brilliant. And the other one I wanted to talk about is Rights by Sophie Cumberlew. I know I talk about this book a lot. It is because it's brilliant and I don't hear enough people talk about it. It is about 4 teenagers who make a pact to lose their virginity together and then it all goes wrong. This book is them and various other characters all looking back on the situation from 15 years on. There is not a nice character in this book. The priest is okay, but the majority of the rest of the characters are horrible. They're not nice, they're not pleasant, they're nasty people, and you don't like any of them, but you also care about them all and you understand where they're coming from and you grow to have sympathy for them even if you don't like them. And it's just so clever that you can make such a nasty situation and so many not very nice characters into such a powerful story that really pulls on your emotions from so many angles. I just think Sophie Cumberlew did an amazing job, and this is just such a good book. I think it is incredible. So yeah, that kind of brings my best of the worst tag to a close. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments what you thought. If you're watching this and you would like to do this tag, please do, and please leave me your links down below because I would like to see many people do this tag. It would be cool, and I'm interested in people's answers because I feel like often people talk about the characters they love rather than the characters they love not not loving, if that makes sense. Specifically, I'm going to tag Lauren from Lauren the Books, Verity from Nerdy English Girl, Claire Quigley, Jacob Tranner, Melissa from The Bookish Babbler. I'm going to tag Time to Read, I'm going to tag Books and Questions, I'm going to tag Hermit's Progress, I'm going to tag Under the Radar Books, I'm going to tag Leanne Rose. That's probably enough people, isn't it? I've tagged a lot of people now. I will leave a list down below of all the people I've tagged, and they also all have very good channels, which you should go and look at. But I figured as I've made a tag, I might as well tag lots and lots of BookTube people. Anyway, I'll be back very soon with another video, and in the meantime, happy reading.